I am Vinnie Tortorich. Folks, your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. Whoa. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. Temple of the Dog, hunger strike. Yeah, hard to believe that guy is gone. Chris Cornell. No longer with us, but you know who is with us? Oh, yeah. He's here, and he's still with us. I'm talking about the beautiful Mr. Chris Shaffer. Yeah.
The other Chris?
Yeah. The lesser Chris. I mean, the better Chris.
Oh. I mean, I'm no Soundgarden audio slave, Temple of the Dog vocalist, but you know,
nor will you ever be. Chris, you know what's in this cup right here? This cup right here, this little demi-tasse.
A little espresso.
Mm-hmm.
Are you expressing yourself today?
I'm expressing myself with espresso. Today I've made it with Pure Vitamin Club's Double French. Mm-hmm. And you know what it reminds me of when I make coffee with the Double French? The reason, people don't know, people go, why do you call it Double French? I said, because it's a French roast. We think of very dark, oily coffees as being French roast. But I first made it as my very own espresso bean when I used to just roast on my front porch. I must have been the biggest hick living in Calabasas. I was literally roasting coffee on the front porch because there's so much smoke involved that if you did it in the house, it would just set off the alarms, right? And I would sit out there and roast coffees, and that's how Pure Coffee Club got started. And I would roast this one bean, it's a very good bean, to a very oily double crack. I'd go past double crack, and I would just slow down the heat and get it real oily, and that was my espresso bean, right? And but it's also a French roast, so we call it Double French. It doubles as a French roast. Great if you want to put it in the the French press. You have an AeroPress. It's good in that. It's also good. It's good all the way around. It's good as a pour over. It's good, and I make iced coffee with it sometimes. Although it's not my favorite to make iced coffee, but I do it. The cold brew. But whenever I make it in the espresso machine, every single time, it reminds me of those early days of me enjoying espresso back in 1981 when I first came on to espresso in New Orleans. I found this kind of bohemian coffee shop right there on Ferret Street, and I would go there to study. And he had all different kind of cappuccino drinks and everything. But the one thing I kept going back to was espresso. Espresso. It got me through freshman. People go, wow, you played football and you made the dean's list every semester. I made the dean's list 7 out of 8 semesters. I'm bragging, Chris. That's not a humble brag. That's a brag. And the way I did it was with coffee. It's the only way to do it. Right? And I would go sit at that bohemian coffee shop. I wish I could remember it. It might have been called the Ferret something coffee shop. Can't remember. But I would sit there and drink their espressos. I drank so many, they would discount them to me. And that reminds me of those days. Anyway, folks, that's a long way of saying, go check it out at purecoffeeclub.com.
Man, I was not a coffee person in college.
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't go to college for 8 semesters, so there's that. But I feel like I missed out a little bit on the coffee shop culture thing. Like, yeah, it's weird to me to go to a coffee shop and work or study.
Well, you got to remember, this is long before the days of a Starbucks or anything like that. There was no national coffee chains, if you will, at all. It just didn't exist. Right? So in towns like, I guess, Seattle, that's where Starbucks and all that started. I think it happens in rainy big cities where it rains a lot, right? Where these coffee houses, these kind of hippy dippy tapestry, places, and really cool. Couches, you sit on these broken down couches in there, and it smells like patchouli oil and coffee mixed in. And I just got into that whole scene. Look, I was in a drinking city, and I didn't drink at all. I never had a drink until I was like 35 or 36. I can't remember the actual year. I went through college without one drink, zero. But I drank my way. I drank. And by the way, they always say whatever stimulant you study on, you have to take that stimulant for the test. And this is back in the day, when you watch Hallmark movies and everything now, people are walking around with their paper cups, right? Everyone's got the cup full of something, the big 20 ounce or whatever. I walked into class with a mug of coffee to take the test. Not one professor ever stopped me or said, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" or whatever. They got it. They knew what was going on. Had a big giant mug full of coffee, black coffee.
Not to derail this and make this entire show about coffee, but I was having a conversation with somebody the other day that's a Brit, and they were talking about the size of coffee in America.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think about the different ways that people drink coffee,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like in Colombia and in a lot of South America, there are coffee shops, right? You've got your Starbucks and your Juan Valdez and those kinds of places. But there's also just little old ladies selling coffee on the street, what they call tinto, which is just a couple ounces.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an espresso, and it's not a cup of black coffee. But it seems like they drink coffee in Colombia, at least the way that they drink alcohol, right? If you go to a party in Colombia, everybody's passing around a bottle or walking around with a bottle and like
Right.
little baby shot glasses, right? It's to just stay caffeinated or to just stay at that level of inebriation
Right.
all night long or all day long. In America, you get this,
Right.
right? You get something giant.
Yeah.
And is it just because everything is bigger and better in America? Or is it because we want to feel the caffeine versus somewhere like in Italy or through most of South America where you're drinking smaller amounts but more frequently? Does that make sense?
Yeah, like the way my grandfather drank coffee was he would pour a little bit in a cup and just sip, 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 and go right back to work. And then later on, sip, 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 back to work. That's probably why I got into the demi-tasse, because I just do a ristretto shot. Sometimes I'll do a double shot, like an ounce and a half, 2 ounces, but I do espresso all day long, right? And by the way, folks, if you think this is not healthy speak, we just put out, go check. If you're not on my X account, go check my X account. We just put out a whole thread, a tweet thing where we talk about Dan Campbell, the coach for the Lions, and the amount of coffee he drinks per day. And the American Heart Association came out a couple of years ago. Chris is going to find some stuff here. We didn't mean to talk about coffee. I'm sure Chris has something else to talk about. But they came out and said for every cup of coffee you drink, you have a 10% less chance of having a heart attack that day. Right? So if you drink 5 cups, that's a 50% chance less. And you would think, oh my God, doctors used to say you have heart problems, you have high blood pressure, stop drinking coffee. Now they've gone about facing that. They turned right on their heels and went, we were wrong. Turns out coffee's actually heart healthy. Odd the way that works. But who was saying this years ago? Let me think about it for a while.
Coffee is kind of like meat. Vinny, if you think about all of the studies, and we've talked about this a lot in the past, where they're like, hey, red meat is bad for you.
Right.
Because we did this study where people wrote down what they ate and they wrote down McDonald's and that's got red meat in it. It's not the red meat that's the problem, right? If you consider a McDonald's burger to be meat, then that's red meat technically, right? Or pink slime, I guess.
Right.
It's not the coffee, it's all the crap that we put in it, right? And I think it may have been on a Friday show that is coming up, where we were talking about the carcinogens in coffee and
Yeah.
how you
The
have to,
acrylamide. Yeah.
yeah, like you would have to drink like your body's weight worth of coffee on a daily basis for that to be an issue.
Yeah.
Like some of those kinds of things. And one serving of pasta had more of it in it. Right. Like it's just silly things. But we can't separate the raw ingredient from the way that people consume the raw ingredient.
Right.
Like there's no context applied to these things, right? And when you study these things individually, be it coffee or be it red meat, it turns out they're not bad for you.
Right. Yeah. And that, look, that's the problem we have with all of it. I mean, most of the health stuff comes from epidemiological studies. And you'll go, well, Vin, what does that mean? It's a big word. It means that they'll give people a survey over the course of 20 years or 30 years. And they'll ask them maybe once a year would be the shortest period, but usually it's every 2 or 3 years. Tell us what you've been eating, right? Fill out this questionnaire. And they could have 10,000 people. And over the course of time, some of those people die. And they look at what people are eating and who died. And then they come up that, you can extrapolate almost anything you want from an epidemiological study, right? The same thing that says that a certain thing is bad for you in that study can actually say something is good for you, depending on how you look at it. And the thing I always bring up on epidemiological studies is they're not reliable at all. And here's why. Chris, I want you to answer this without saying or hesitating. Or I want you to give me a direct answer. What did you eat for lunch yesterday?
I have no idea.
Okay. So
if I thought about it, I could give you an answer.
right.
But I also, okay, so here's the other thing. I don't normally eat lunch. I do like big breakfast, big
Okay, what did you eat for dinner 2 days ago?
pork
Stumped
ribs.
again. Ribs. He had to think about it. It didn't come right out. Right? What did you eat last week for breakfast? Let's say a Monday a week ago.
Eggs. 4 to 5 eggs.
How did you fix them? Do you fix them the same way every time?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Potentially a little bit of cheese, some butter.
You get what I'm saying. If you ask people what they ate yesterday for lunch, I'm asking you, audience, what did you have 2 days ago for lunch or for dinner? You have to sit around and think about it. There's no way you're going to remember what you had over the course of the last 3 years. And the one thing we've learned is that people lie on those things because they can't remember and they feel like they have to put something down. How reliable is that study? It's not reliable at all. And then they take that and they make policy based on it. It doesn't work. If it worked, I would be the first one telling you, hey, follow this. This is good science. But it's crappy science, right? Good science is when you do a double-blind study. You have a control group. You have to control for what you're studying, right? If you don't have that, you don't have a study. Epidemiology has thrown us down the wrong road every single time, period, with cholesterol and everything else.
Well, it's what's that famous phrase? Figures lie and liars figure, right? If you look at any data set, you can make it say pretty much whatever you want, depending on how you weight things too.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with what is essentially feelings, right, or opinion to create the data set, it becomes even less reliable.
Yeah.
So what did you eat? What did I eat 2 nights ago? I remember that I ate pork ribs, but I don't remember what I made with it. Right? Now, because I'm traveling, I'm also not cooking the same way that I normally would because I don't have my kitchen and my stuff. So I'm eating a lot more limited set of things. If you asked me normally, I wouldn't even be able to answer that question.
Right.
Because it depends on what's in the fridge.
Yeah. But that's what we rely on. And my good friend Nina Teicholz wrote probably the most compelling book about this of anyone. Big Fat Surprise. Go check it out. She took the same studies that showed that saturated fat was bad and figured out that, extrapolating from the same studies, the same exact studies, turns out that eating red meat and having saturated animal fat was actually good for you. Same studies. She didn't change anything. And by the way, when she started looking into it, she was a vegetarian, and the article she was writing for a magazine was to prove that the vegetarian and or vegan diet was the best way to go. And since Nina was one of these people who wouldn't just look around and go, wait, I want to, confirmation bias. I just want what I want to be right. She came from a scientific background. Her father was a scientist. Since she's written that book, she's also become Dr. Teicholz. She now has a PhD, right? So why not follow someone who's got some brains like Nina? How about that? How about we do that? Anyway, Chris?
Vinny, you were talking about studies.
Mm-hmm.
I got a few that popped across my plate.
Oh boy.
That I wanted to share with you this week.
All right.
Do you want to go? Studies first, or do you want to go silliness first?
Let's do the studies first, and we'll save the silliness for the end. I want this to be a hard-hitting podcast, Chris. Hard-hitting news.
Vinny, a pilot study examining the keto diet shows it could be therapy for college students with major depressive disorder.
Okay. A pilot study. Where was that done?
It looks like it was done. Where was this done?
This country, Sweden.
Yeah, it was done with U.S. college students.
Okay.
I'm looking at the study itself, and it has all of the same problems that you were just talking about. Now, they started with a food survey, and then when they moved into the study, they did actually make sure that the people in the keto group were on the keto diet.
Right.
But they really looked at the subjective feelings of how people felt over the course of the study, and take a wild guess at how many people they tested for this study in total.
If I'm taking a wild guess, well, they wanted to make sure. I'm going to guess a small group. I'm going to go with 300 people.
24.
Huh.
Okay. We make fun of studies all over the place. And it's not to say that this is not helpful and that it's not a good thing to do. But all the headlines I'm seeing about this are keto diet will cure your depression. And so, of course, I looked at the study and went, 24 people. Great.
Well, I'm glad that the headline went in the direction that we wanted to go in, but more of these studies have to be done. I've had Dr. Chris Palmer on the show. As you know, Georgia Eade is a friend of the show. I can't remember where Chris Palmer got he's Dr. Palmer. They're both psychologists or psychiatrists, and Georgia Eade is right out of Harvard, right? Harvard psychiatrist. And she started figuring out we don't have to have people on all these drugs. Now, folks, I am not telling you to go off of your drugs. Do not do this without a doctor. But they found, she's working with all these people, found out that the depressed, you get them, just getting them off of junk food, off of processed foods, changes everything. And then when you take them to the next level and get them off of, you bring them to one ingredient foods where it's vegetables, fruit, meat, eggs, chicken, fish, poultry, fish, everything. Then they get even better. And then when you remove some of the sugars from the fruit and you just make it pretty much a ketogenic diet, these people are off of drugs altogether.
And that was exactly the reason that they did this study. In the intro to the study, they're talking about the huge spike in depression during the disease that shall not be named. in college students from 6.5% to 24% of college students showing signs or reported major depression.
Mm-hmm.
And they said the biggest problem with all of the existing therapies is it can increase anxiety, the existing therapies being pharmaceutical intervention, increased anxiety, decreased libido, nausea, insomnia, decreased metabolic health, which puts you into a loop of more depression
Right.
overall. And so they wanted to see if you could use something like diet as a first line treatment for something like depression. And the little voice in the back of my head goes, well, obviously, because if you're eating correctly, it balances out your hormones, it balances out your metabolic health, and everything should work better. It's nice that they're doing this. I would just like to see studies that are done as correctly as possible, right? It's nice that it's headed in the right direction, and it's great that they're testing this theory. Don't fall victim to the headline, right? It's 24 people, 16 of whom were in the keto group from the look at it.
I guess this proves that we're not one trick ponies, right? It's like, all right, there's a study. Listen to me. You see, I don't have a horse in this race, folks. People don't you hate it when other people say that keto doesn't work and NSNG doesn't? No, I don't care. I don't make my living off of NSNG, even though I created it. I'm one of the first people to talk about low carb on the internet. Think about that. I don't care if people follow it or not. I hope they do because I want a healthier world. We can start with a healthier America and then move on into the world. I would love to see that happen before I die. Right? But I don't have a horse in the race. If I figured out next week that a vegan diet was the way to go, I would change. I would not stand on ceremony. Sometimes people like to stand on ceremony and go, oh, no, this is what I've always believed in. Ansel Keys was that way. He knew the truth. People would see him out at steakhouses and they'd go, hey, aren't you the guy against steak? And he would go, we're good. Cereal is for the poor people. His words. Cereal is for the poor people. That was Ansel Keys, right?
Is that the 20th century version of "Let Them Eat Cake"?
Pretty much.
Which, by the way, is a misquote. I don't know if you know that.
It is. I know it is, but that's what it became.
Well, Vinny, it's a good thing you don't stand on ceremony because according to Food Navigator, the food industry needs to grapple with the fact that the keto diet is collapsing and it's the end of an era.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Global interest in keto dropped 18.5% year on year by mid 2025. And keto restaurant items, which, by the way, I would love to know how they defined that, fell 12.3% year over year in the same period.
Yeah.
Now, what they don't talk about in this story is if you look at, have you ever looked at Google Trends? I think you and I talked about this about a year ago, right around this time, because we heard a similar story. Google Trends tracks how often something is searched over time. Right?
Right.
And if you compare vegan and keto on Google Trends, they both have the same downward trend over the last 5 years.
Right.
Why? Maybe because when everybody was locked in their house, they had nothing better to do than try to figure out how to not be as large as they are, right? The biggest thing that was interesting out of this, though, Vinny, is the reason why they are saying that keto is in a decline. Now, it appears to be just completely made up out of whole cloth, but I want you to take a wild guess as to their rationale for why it's declining.
Why would keto be declining? You know, the wild guess I would take is people are just tired of going, I just want my fucking pizza, pretty much. And they just go, they get a case of the fuckets, right? The fuckets is the worst thing in the world.
There are two reasons that are given. The first is it's just too hard to eat a keto diet.
Okay.
which I guess would fall in the fuckets category.
That is the fuckets.
The second one is your favorite topic, GLP-1s.
Okay. I was just having a conversation about GLP-1s about an hour ago. I was doing a consultation. And the person said to me, I've been on GLP-1s for a while. I started with this. That wasn't enough. I went to that. Losing weight, right? I was losing weight, but then I stopped. They put me on a heavier dose. I started losing weight again. I stopped. They put me on the top dose, started losing weight again. I stopped, and now I'm gaining weight back, and I'm still on the high dose of the GLP-1. And I went, oh, you just ate through the drug. That's what you did. You ate through the drug. And he goes, you're exactly right. How did you know that? I went, because you can't gain weight unless you're eating enough to gain weight. You're doing something that's causing you to gain weight. By putting someone on a GLP-1, you're teaching them zero. Right? It's something I learned way back when I talked about it, first chapter of my book, when I'm talking about the actress that I'm out there and I get her to lose 60 pounds. They put her on a sitcom and the whole thing. And then she gained all the weight back. Now, I've seen her in recent years. She's lost weight and learned how to live and eat. I took 60 pounds off because they gave me a lot of money to take 60 pounds off of her. I didn't teach her anything, right? Had I taught her, she wouldn't have had to yo-yo for years and years and years before she figured it out. GLP-1s are not teaching you anything other than, hey, I'm taking this drug right now. I don't mind being nauseous while I'm taking this drug, and I'll lose weight. Some people start eating through that drug. Another example, when they cut your stomach out, or they do some kind of gastric bypass, either the Foley pouch, the gastric sleeve, the bypass, the whole thing. There's several different surgeries, but they all pretty much take your stomach out of the picture. So that when you eat a thimble's worth of anything, you feel full. Well, if no one's taught you how to eat, you're going to gain the weight back. Famously, Scott King. He was a 350, 400-pound man, had his stomach cut out. He went down to 250, 225, 237, I don't know, and then shot up to 600. He ate through the fact that he didn't have a stomach. People do it. Probably half of the consults I do on a weekly basis are people with no stomach or some version of gastric bypass. There's a bunch of different methods. Now, am I crazy? Am I making this up? Absolutely not. This is what I deal with. I know it's true. And now people aren't getting their stomachs cut out. They're taking GLP-1s and semaglutides and semi this and semi that. And at the end of the day, what we end up with is people eating through the drugs. Period. I talked about my younger brothers. We're at a restaurant. My younger brother's on the highest dose, 15 milligrams of, can't remember if it was Wegovy or Manjaro, whichever one he's on. Another guy came up to him and said, can I buy your drugs from you? Prescription drugs. And my brother goes, yeah, I'll sell you some just to get out of there. But, I said, Mark, he goes, no, I'm not selling. Are you crazy? It's a prescription drug. Guy was drunk. I just wanted to get away. But he goes, someone will sell to him. And I said, well, why doesn't he go to the doctor and get his own medication? He goes, oh, he has that. He already has that. But he eats through it. He needs to double his dose because he's got a wedding. His daughter's walking down the aisle. He wants to double up for a while. Does any of this sound good or normal to anyone? Anyone?
You know who else would have that same behavior, Vinny?
Yeah, drug addict.
Painkiller addicts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the exact behavior pattern that you see in any depiction of somebody who got hooked on oxy, right? They have their oxy, they went to the doctor, they got more oxy, or they got a higher dosage. Then they have to start going to friends and family to buy it because the same amount of oxy they were using before isn't enough. And then you end up on heroin or whatever else, right? Because you haven't been taught to manage the pain, you've covered the pain. It's the exact same thing. Now, I'm not saying GLP-1s are the same thing as Oxycontin or heroin, but it's the same behavior and the same dependence
Right.
that comes from it, unless you learn how to work through the pain, truly recover from the pain, or in the case of something like a GLP-1, start to eat correctly. And that was the last part of this article that I found interesting. So they talked about GLP-1s, and then they said companies are rebranding keto-focused products to focus on other label attributes like high protein, low sugar, or gut friendly. And then they spent another few paragraphs talking about how instead of avoiding sugar, people are on a more frequent basis specifically looking for lower sugar products. You and I have talked about this. Have you ever seen a lower sugar product that is less sweet or tastes less sweet
No.
than a high sugar product?
No. About the
No.
same.
Because we're swapping out sugar for allulose or stevia or any of the other things that you can use to sweeten a product. That doesn't make it better for you, right? And so it seems like, and I know this is something you and I have talked about a bunch recently, that we're playing even more label games by just saying, oh, keto isn't as searched for anymore. All right, what's the new thing? High protein? Let me just relabel this high protein or low sugar, because technically a keto product would be low sugar, right? Or at least it should be.
Yeah.
And so they're just relabeling essentially the same formulas, which aren't great for you anyway.
Well, there you have it, Chris. We'll leave it right there. I mean, I could sit here and yammer on about this all day long. What else you got there?
You want to go more silliness, or do you want to go to a huge political scandal that's food related?
You know, I'll stay away from politics. Will I have to? Is it?
No, there's no actual politics involved.
Okay, let's do
other than
that.
the headline.
Okay.
So India is hitting back against the Trump tariffs by making vegan food cheaper. Say all of the headlines. They passed a 12% reduction in their GST, their like global tax, for many plant-based products, including soy milk and almond milk and soy meat is what they're calling it. I guess they're calling it soy meat because it is a vegan outlet that's writing the story. As a way to increase profitability for Indian companies, despite the fact that they have now higher costs selling into the US. What they don't talk about in this article is that tax break also applies to meat and dairy and non-animal or non-plant-based products, right? But the big headline that I've seen 10 different places today is, oh my God, they're doing this to make vegan food cheaper.
So they have a tariff and they're making the food cheaper because they're okay.
They lowered their internal tax,
right,
to help increase profit margins for food manufacturers.
Yeah, which shows you how much profit they were making before, right? When you think about it, because they didn't stop selling it here and they're dealing with the tariff. And by the way, that means the tariff. And by the way, I don't know if I agree or disagree with tariffs. I don't know anything about when it comes to any of that. Seems like the tariff is doing its job, or the job that you want a tariff to do. Or do I have it backwards? Am I backwards, Chris? Help me out, because
I think the point of the tariff would be to have more American companies doing it. The fact that
Mhm.
they then have to respond by lowering their own internal taxes to make sure the companies aren't losing money
Mhm.
tells you that it's working. But the more interesting portion of that was I haven't seen a single headline talking about Indian beef is going to be cheaper, or you know coconut milk, or like any of the other things that you might get that come out of India. It's all about the soy based products and stuff. And when you actually look at it, it turns out that it applies to pretty much everything that's manufactured food, or butchered, whatever. All of the food
Right.
products in India are getting the same tax break, but no one's talking about it. They're only talking about the soy meat and the vegan products that are manufactured in India that are gonna come roaring back because they got this tax break now.
Oh, good-o. We need more of that. Thank you. Thank you for that story, Chris. Thanks for upsetting me.
Well,
Yeah.
Vinny, that immediately leads me into
Okay.
the fun story of the day, and we've talked about Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods in the past.
Oh, yeah. I've done a
Um,
whole documentary on it. It's called Beyond Impossible, in case you're new to this podcast.
and we've talked about the 97% drop in the valuation of Beyond and some of those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And one of my new favorite headlines: vegan burgers are losing the US culture war. It's just not our time.
It's never anybody's time. First off, no matter how crappy we eat, we want at some point real food. Even if it's pizza. Pizza is better for you than this. Bottom line. Bottom line. This stuff is an abomination. They thought that, these two idiots that started these companies, Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat and all this, got millions and millions of dollars, $500 million. I mean, I did a whole documentary on it. These kooks were like, oh, yeah. In just a few years, the new favorite thing, they were saying the quiet part out loud. We have it in the documentary. It's like, yeah, we want to kill off all the cattle. Kill them off. Well, since you're killing them all, can we just eat those? Or are we just going to go ahead and kill them because you think that they're ruining the ozone layer? And if ruminants are ruining the ozone layer, we have to look at other ruminants. Bambi, you're out of here. It's a ruminant.
Buffalo.
Buffalo, goodbye. Goodbye. There's a lot of ruminants, right? If they're ruining the ozone layer, they need to all go. Goodbye, Mr. Moose. See you later. With your big, beautiful rack of horns and everything. You got to go. Done. See, they don't think about that in their stupid arguments. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but
Well, you actually didn't. So this article, and I think a couple weeks ago, Vinny, we talked about how British people are eating more meat. Ironically, this article is from The Guardian, which is from where? The
England.
UK publication, last time I checked, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying, oh, this is an American thing, right? So the whole article is talking about how it's an American problem. Americans are eating more meat. It's not just Americans, it's everybody, right? And they're blaming it on a few things. First, the CEO of Beyond Meat said, meat consumption is on the rise. The political culture is different. We just need to get through this period. They then spend the next few paragraphs talking about how it's influencers and the current political environment of the United States that is leading to the rise in meat consumption. And they're specifically blaming RFK.
They're blaming one man.
And Paul Saladino.
Two men. Two men that would like to see the country get healthier, they're the problem. Did they realize that they had problems long before Paul Saladino was around? Well, Paul has been around for a while. And I mean, RFKJ he's just been in office for what, half a year? Something like that. And
Yeah.
he's the problem. I mean, Chris, we can look back and all the buy-ins they did. You know, we were blamed on this podcast. I'm sorry that we're not to blame anymore because we did impossible, beyond impossible. And then their stock went way down. Okay. All right. So your stock was down before that. When your stock was going down, RFK Jr. was still trying to become the Democratic nominee on that side of the aisle. That's how long ago that was. Okay. He wasn't even part of Maha. Maha didn't exist when RFK was trying to get the nomination from the Democrats. Might have been a good move on their part. Right? They, you know, and I don't, if I do this, it's going to sound political. I'm not going to do it. I was getting ready to say something that was going to make me sound very political, but I'm not going to do it.
Vinny, we talked a few stories ago about the decrease in people searching for keto, and it was like 18%, something like that.
Right.
This article specifically talks about there was a 20% drop in the people in America seeking to cut their meat consumption. So I guess 20% increase in people eating the same amount of meat or more since 2020.
Okay.
And they're blaming it on RFK, Paul Saladino, and the thing you were just talking about, which is, according to Shauna Downs at Rutgers, they just don't really care about their environmental footprint. They don't care what eating meat does to the environment. She said there's a disconnect between mounting evidence on meat's environmental footprint and what actually drives consumer behavior. Sustainability is a consideration for only a small portion of the population. Taste and price are the biggest things, and plant-based products need to deliver on those, said Jody Crincher of the Good Food Institute. So it's just you hate the environment and you love Donald Trump. That's the only reason you could eat meat.
So they're blaming this on Trump. Is that what?
Well, RFK, right, who is a Trump appointee,
I guess, yeah.
Paul Saladino, and the fact that Americans just hate the environment more than they're willing to give up their beef.
All right. I mean, I guess everything can be blamed on Trump. That seems to be how everything works, right? You know, I want to move away from the subject, if you don't mind. I'm getting uncomfortable.
The last portion of this that I wanted to share with you, just because I thought it was interesting. 4% of people in the U.S. identify as vegetarian, and 1% identify as vegan.
Sounds about
Both
right.
of those numbers, yeah, it's surprising to hear, and it seems low at first glance. Not the vegan number, but more like the vegetarian number.
Right.
And I guess, you know, it just depends on how you identify them, but it was a Gallup survey. And they said it's actually gone down since 2021. Or sorry, 2001.
What was it? They did a study and they figured out that close to 90%, I think it was 87% of people who start the vegan diet stop within the first 3 months and never go back to it again. So they got to constantly keep finding new people to keep it going. And I don't know what's in it for anyone. It's kind of like I said with me earlier. It's like, I don't care what people eat. I just want people to eat the right way so we can all be healthy. I don't make a dime off of people eating low carb, period. You know that better than anyone, right? But vegans want to keep recruiting new vegans. And my question is why? I mean, we've seen parents go to jail because they foisted their beliefs on their, infants, and the infants died from the vegan diet because they weren't getting the proper nutrition. And these people just kept giving their kid the diet, and they ended up in prison. That's not once or twice. That's happened a lot. How many times does it have to happen before people go, oh shit, maybe that's not the way we should be eating? If we eat this way, we can get malnutrition. Right? But that's what we are.
Well, I think it's interesting because this is supposedly a unbiased article, right?
Right?
It's not an opinion piece. The point of the article was to talk about the decrease in sales at Beyond Impossible and whatever else. But it seems fairly clear to me, and I don't know anything about the author, but it seems fairly clear to me that the only reason that you include those quotes is because you agree with them. Right? Like, you don't write that body of the article unless you're trying to push that as the narrative. If you really care about the environment, you need to understand the impact that eating a vegan diet or eating a vegetarian diet has on the environment, the same way that you ask non-vegans, non-vegetarians to understand the impact that industrial beef farming has on the environment, right? And I think you and I can both agree, and I think this is a point that anybody on any side of the, here, we're going to coin a new term, Vinnie, the dietary political spectrum, can agree with, which is industrial farming for animals is not great.
Right.
No one likes industrial chicken farming. No one likes industrial beef.
No.
But just like ignoring the fact that the individual ingredients in the foods that we were talking about earlier, whether it's red meat or coffee, aren't the things that are causing the problem, we pretend that red meat itself is bad for the environment because some of the ways that it's produced are bad for the environment. And we somehow ignore monocrop agriculture, which, by the way, kills more animals than the entire industrial meat industry.
Yeah, it does not come
right?
close. Right.
Now, they're not cute. Some of them are. But you're talking about a lot of things that don't have adorable faces. And we pretend that people who are doing regenerative farming and growing beef, which is a weird thing to say, but you understand where I'm going with that, farming in the right way, that does not have the same environmental impact. But we can't seem to separate those things because it's too convenient to go the other way and just have it as a talking point.
Well, it's a good lie. You know, my neighbor Hank has written, I want to say, 14 books. He's a retired tenured professor from UVA. The guy is one of the foremost authorities on the planet when it comes to trees. Right? And I was having a drink with Hank one night, and I said, Hank, you know, he was asking me about my movies and the whole thing. I guess he had watched Beyond Impossible, and he goes, you know, no, it was before Beyond Impossible. He watched one of my movies, maybe it was Fat, and he said, you know, they say that, you know, cow burps, you know, ozone layer, CO2, you know, gases, you know, the whole thing, greenhouse gases, and he's telling me, you know, he's talking about it. He goes, you know what the number one methane producer is on the planet when it comes to animals? I said, no. I'm thinking, what's really big, like a whale, an elephant? You know, I'm trying to think of the biggest animals.
All those whale farts causing global warming over here.
Exactly. He goes,
you know what we need to do, Vinny? Bring back whale oil. That'll solve the whole problem.
Yeah, that'll fix everything. He said it was termites, the number one methane producer on the planet. Termites.
Makes sense.
And even at that, it doesn't do anything to hurt the ozone layer because the Earth has figured out a way to, you know, rotate this gas and do the whole thing. I've had a guy, Dr. Mittler, on the show a few times
It's
explaining all
we
that.
learned this in 10th grade biology,
Yeah.
right? It's the methane cycle.
Yeah.
And to blame cows or termites or whale farts not only doesn't make sense, it ignores history, right? And you and I have talked about this in the past, but one of the other things, and it's what made me think of this, that they mentioned in this article, is they were talking about how it's American manifest destiny. I need to see if I can find the quote, because they also blame John Wayne.
Of course they do. While you're looking for that, Debbie, I think the title of the show should be Why Whale Farts Are Blamed for What Termite Farts Did. No, don't make that the title. All right, go on, Chris.
Certainly in the American fabric, there's a relationship with cattle, the kind of pioneer rugged individualism, John Wayne, and it's all wrapped up with this kind of manifest destiny, right? It's John Wayne's fault that we eat meat. Like, it's but if we think about the era of manifest destiny, people were riding in Conestoga wagons and trains and just target shooting bison out the window because they were everywhere. There are fewer ruminants on the planet now than there ever have been. You can't blame the ruminants for an increase in methane if there's fewer ruminants, right? It just, there's no logic there. And the more I read of this article, the more I laughed, because it went from being something about Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat into who can we blame for people eating more meat? And it's John Wayne, Paul Saladino, RFK, and TikTok.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Sprinkling some Vinnie, Tortorich, and Sean Baker, and you got yourself a baker's dozen. You know, it's like they open their mouth and they lie. I mean, you know, this whole Greta Thunberg thing, and, you know, just, you know, she's changed her tune. You know, the world was supposed to end in a couple of years. Well, okay, Greta, didn't end. Now what? Now what are you doing? I'm taking my sailboat over to Palestine, I guess. I don't know. You know, they just change and go somewhere else and do something else. You know, hey, you too. You wrote Streets Have No Name, right? Song about the acid rain. And we weren't supposed to have vegetables in 10 years. Chris, what year did that song come out? Streets Have No Name, the Acid Rain song by U2.
Early 80s, right?
Probably. I want you to look it up because they said 10 years.
87.
87. 97, 07, 17, that's 30 years. We're coming up on 40 years. If we don't do something right away, we won't have vegetables in 10 years. I ate a tomato today. Well, that's a fruit. You too, you might have a point. Wait, hang on. Vegetables. What did I have? Oh, no, that's a fruit too. I had an avocado last night.
Do you see the problem with food surveys, Vinny? You can't even remember the meat jewelry that you ate.
Wait, I had an olive. That's another fruit. Apparently, I eat a lot of fruit. But hey, according to you too, 10 years. That's all we got. Acid rain in the 70s. You know what it was? Ice Age. Ice Age. If we don't do anything in 10 years, we're going to have a problem. That was back in the early mid-70s. I remember that. We're going to freeze. We're going to have everything's going to freeze. That's it. We're done. Right?
Well, and it's not to say that we don't have problems, Vinny, right? We have a topsoil issue. We have a lot of these kinds of things. But you know what the best way is to avoid a lot of those things?
Go on.
Getting rid of monocrop agriculture and going back to the way we used to do things.
Yeah, let the cows get everywhere. Yeah.
Right. You know what's a great source of nitrogen? Poop.
Cow poop.
Bird poop. Cow poop. Bison poop. Right?
Dog shit. I need to tell my neighbors I'm not picking up the dog crap anymore.
It's
I'm not going to
fertilized.
pick it up. I'm going to leave it because we need to fertilize this neighborhood. I've looked around. We need some fertilization. I'm calling for everyone else. I know there's a few people in my neighborhood who listen to this show. Angie, you got 2 dogs. Don't pick it up. Rob, Sarah, you got 2 dogs. Don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. We need more shit on the ground. Is that what you're telling me, Chris?
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
But I think so this article, Vinny, every single claim that you got into in Beyond Impossible is in this article. And so the more I read of it, the more I laughed, right? Every argument that was being made over the last 10 years is all in this article after they blame John Wayne, TikTok. And, hey, we just can't eat more meat because raising meat takes up too much
hang
land.
on, Chris. Hang on. Did they really blame John Wayne? The man has been dead for at least 2, if not 3 decades.
They blamed the American spirit of rugged individualism, John Wayne. It's all wrapped up in Manifest Destiny. Right?
So we need more soy boys?
Without considering the impact that has on the environment, we're saying, hey, we can't do this because they literally use the phrase, Vinny, burps of cattle.
Jesus Christ. Do you know when John Wayne died? He died the same year Streets Have No Name came out, 1979.
You know what killed
I
him?
can't believe he's been going, huh?
You know what killed him? Acid rain.
Acid rain. And by the way, no, I think he died of cancer, right? Is that how he died?
Considering the fact that most John Wayne movies were filmed right next to a nuclear testing area, that's not really a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, wow, John Wayne's been gone for a long time. And we're still blaming shit on him. Because he made men, right?
It's just, it's mind-boggling that we can't seem to have a rational conversation anymore. And this is the thing that's frustrating. You and I have talked about, you're friends with Rich Roll, right? We famously had an interview booked with a leading vegan influencer,
Michael Greger,
who refused to come on the show because he realized last minute that you were not a vegan show.
Right.
And when that happens, you end up with this stuff on both sides, right? It's either you have to eat carnivore because plants are killing the environment, or you have to eat vegan because animals are killing the environment. Turns out plants and animals have been around existing together forever. Yeah. And we agree on 85, 90% of the actual issue, but we get separated by that 10% of, well, no, you should actually eat meat, and we do need cows burping and farting, and we need some bison walking around because of all the good that they do for the environment.
Well, they say it with a certain amount of certitude, right? And, they make it a real thing, and it's not real. And I've talked about this kind of thing before. We've seen it in the real world, right? Gas pumps. Don't have a cell phone on when you're in the gas pumps. This was back when cell phones were brand new. There was some story about the static electricity from a cell phone somehow exploded a car from the fumes. So we stopped doing that. One guy put a bunch of matches in his shoes and went to the airport, and they called it a shoe bomb. We've been taking our shoes off since 9/11, 24 years ago at the airport. Folks, if you're young, before that, you never took your shoes off. Before that, if you go watch old movies from the 70s and 80s, it's like, she's leaving for Chicago, never to come back. And the guy just
every late 90s rom-com.
Yeah, every rom-com, they're running right up to the gate. Nobody had to go through TSA. If you look at it now and you go, that movie's not real. The person just ran all the way up to the gate. Yeah, you used to go to the airport without a ticket if you wanted to, bought a ticket at the counter, walked right through, got on the plane. That's the world we used to live in, right? One guy put matches in his shoes and threatened to light him on the plane. They called it a shoe bomb. And ever since then, we're taking shoes off.
Well, not anymore.
Even if you have TSA pre-check, which I have, sometimes they'll make you take your shoes off.
Oh, that changed a couple weeks ago.
To what?
You don't have to take them off anymore unless you get flagged specifically. So the default now is to not have to take them off.
Guess who gets flagged every time? Take a guess.
I'm going to guess you.
Take a guess. I don't even want to get into what happens to me when I fly. What I do want to get into is purevitaminclub.com, the purest vitamins on the planet. We ship on time, folks. You buy, we ship. End of story. We had a problem for a while. We had a supply chain issue right after the blah, and the da. We had all kinds of issues. We had to do some firing. I had to take over some things to make sure everything was running correctly. The one thing you could be sure about is that when your vitamins show up, exactly what we says on the label is what's in that bottle. There's no excipients, no flow agents, none of it. Go to purevitaminclub.com, get those vitamins. VinnieTortorich.com/VIP. We're going to open that up soon. Chris, I know we've been busy with something else. Where are we with the workouts? I'm asking you here
So
at the end of the show.
We're waiting on the 6 days. We have the 2 days, the 2 day. And once we have the 6 days, then we'll have the 4 days right behind that.
All right. Did he send it to you? Where are we? Do you have it in your possession to look at
the edits on the 6?
Yeah.
No.
Can we find out when that's coming?
Yep.
This needs to be done. I've been promising this for half a year. It's part of my New Year's resolution. I need this done. My damn train is going to be finished before I get the workout out. These are important things, trains, workouts, what have you. So anyway, folks, rate and review this podcast. Give us a 5-star review. If you hate the show, sit on your hands. Don't do anything. It's the way we roll. On behalf of Chris Shaffer, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living, and let's do it with this little song by U2.